Fireside Chats. I'm Sebastian. I'm one of Telepath's founders, and I'm super excited to have with us today Mallika Rao. She's our guest, and just to introduce her, Mallika is a seasoned technologist with a wealth of experience, engineering experience under her belt. She recently started like an engineering manager position at Twitter, which is super interesting, and congrats to her. So we wanted to take the opportunity to invite Mallika in our webinar or like chat today to kind of learn from her exciting journey, and kind of drill deeper into some of the key topics covering engineering management. As well as best practices and learnings on how to make yourself more desirable to your target employers. So hi, Mallika, and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Seb. It's really very nice to be here. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So just a quick note before we start, for those of you who are just tuning in and are not acquainted to Telepath North, just a quick note on what we do. We're a community that's focused on developers located anywhere in the world. And what we do is help them improve their learning and personal development capabilities. Once you join Telepath North, our community, we'll be working closely and intensely with you to build a unique professional profile that kind of goes beyond your coding skills and drills deeper into the realm of soft skills. That's where we feel that that many developers like you guys out there need help, and that's where we feel we can add a lot of value. And once you go through this process with us, it takes about a month and a half. We work closely with you to land your next career opportunity in the United States, most likely with a company in San Francisco and New York. And there are a lot of perks along the journey. And everything, of course, is free for our members. So, if interesting, please go ahead and check out Telepath North at north.telepath.io, or just Google Telepath North. So, let's kind of get into it. Before we start, a bit of housekeeping. All events start like this. For all of you tuning into YouTube, we'd really love it if you could participate in this chat. We welcome all of your questions in the chat box, and we'll have probably 5 or 10 minutes at the end to kind of go through them. This chat is being recorded and will be available on our YouTube channel on demand, so you can easily tune into that at your convenience. And just let's have fun and enjoy this. So just a quick overview. We'll tap into like 4 big categories tonight. First of all, we'd like to hear a bit about Mallika's journey to becoming an engineering manager. And then perhaps she will share some of the best practices and advice she has for people either aiming for that position or just trying to kind of up their game and become more desirable for employers. And then we'll tap into a bit of like engineering management specifics, and then just like a quick session at the end, like an outro, which is more generic with a few fun questions. Mallika, should we get going?
Yes, I think we should.
I think my camera just stopped just a sec. Okay, there we go. So I think it's a good way to start and just kind of tell us how you became an EM, and like what was your path towards becoming an engineering manager starting with your career?
Yes. So for me, it was, it was not a very obvious and not a very natural thought process, because I was such a passionate IC. I loved writing systems, code. I've always been a core backend engineer. I associated myself with everything and anything to do with high code quality, caring about performance, especially having worked at Cisco for about 5 years, where I was writing low-level firmware level C programming code. My mind was tuned to thinking about the code as an end all to the business, right? And I thought that's where all the action happens. And it took me a long time to realize that, people are also a big part. In fact, the biggest part of an organization. It took me about 9 years to realize that. And it also so happened that, the people I was surrounded around me during that time were all either tech leads or principal engineers, distinguished engineers, who were just kind enough to encourage me and engage with me in conversations and mentorships, right? So I was influenced by them. And for me, the only part to success was, becoming a kick-ass tech lead or a principal engineer, maybe retiring as a fellow. But something happened. I realized, especially working at startups, that thing happened where I realized that, if you're not making a difference with the people, if the people don't care about what they're building, and if you're truly not caring about how they are growing and whether they are able to see the meaning in their work, you cannot really make all the difference in the product. And that seems like a very simple thought, but it was so complex. And I saw some good effects of it, the ill effects of it. Working in small companies, it's very evident. And then I'm like, maybe this is what my passion is, caring about both people and product. And there was a name to it, right? It was just called as being an engineering lead. It's called as being an engineering leader, engineering manager. So that's how the transition happened for me. But it's about listening to yourself and being self-aware, and just honoring the thoughts that come to you, and not getting caught in my own biases, no matter how strong they are. So I would say that was my journey into it.
Yeah, is it more like feeling that you can kind of offer more by just trying to mentor people than you would be able to contribute just by doing code yourself? Is that like part of the motivation?
Yes, absolutely. Because I was already tech leading projects, and I felt a gap. There was a big gap where I was like, oh, if I could coach this person through this project, he could be so much better at it. If I could support this person, she could just create wonders when she has the autonomy, when she has the right feedback, with the right timing. If I was responsible for this for this person's performance review, then I can make so much more of a difference. And I felt so handicapped because I didn't have those tools with me. I was leading the project, but I was not responsible for their growth. Giving them feedback was not part of my job. Coaching them was not necessary. If I wanted, I could, but I was not held responsible for it. And I wanted to, I wanted to make an impact, because writing code is really one way to look at it, but so much more happens beyond that. And if the company is not thinking about it, or the people who are working on those projects are not thinking about it, you're not building a high performance culture for the long term. Maybe you will release good quality code in the short term, but things will start crumbling down 8 months from now, 9 months from now. So that's what I felt like. And I didn't want to miss out on that, because a big part of my personality is, influencing people, getting influenced myself, and being there for people's growth. So that's what I missed.
Got it. So you've mentioned, backend development. We know that, you have a wealth of experience building scaled and distributed backend systems. How do you feel like backend development has evolved over these past few years? Like, what do you think? Where do you think this is going to? What's exciting for you in this?
Oh my God, this is a very interesting question. And I'm going to give you my personal opinions on this, right? So take it with a pinch of salt. I have seen so many drafts of it. In fact, so much that I feel old sometimes because I started working on C programming, firmware, embedded systems. And I have also written embedded code, like machine level code, where because they didn't have compilers. So I had to write the assembly level code that could run on the hardware directly. And then I moved on to, API programming, writing Python code. In between, I wrote a lot of C++ code in my previous startup, which was Luminous Networks. And then at Apstra, I wrote a lot of Python code. And it's all so much high level than C, right? I've somehow still worked for networking companies, but I'm not a networking expert. I'm a core backend systems expert. And even in systems, it's changed so much because, all the way from C to C++, to Python, just the programming language stack has changed. And also the perspectives and the way you think about designing software or designing good architectures, right? Like off late, my work has been towards designing performant APIs, thinking about better data models, thinking about GraphQL, how do you write performant queries, how do you think at scale. So it's a very different model of thinking, and I really enjoy that. In fact, I'm so grateful because I started at the lowest level and I'm moving upward. If I'd started anywhere higher up, I don't know if I would appreciate the lower level details as much. So I like to think, that was a good journey, but it's changing a lot. And that's why for me, this time it was a conscious decision. I wanted to move away from the core networking products per se, and I wanted to move towards more generic, highly scaled systems, right? So the interviews that I gave were also towards pure distributed systems, high scale, where the complexity of the problem is completely different. And I'm joining the search infra team at Twitter. So they are all about, having prospects into ML and how do you start thinking about the futuristic methods of doing the same kind of designs. And I'm truly excited. I don't know so much of it, and that's part of the excitement. I'm going to learn new stuff, and I'm going to be out of my comfort zone, and it's going to be super exciting. But the core principle is always about wanting to design good quality software features, not planning it in such a way that you don't have to make too many compromises when you're implementing it. That's the headspace that I like to be in when I'm thinking about code.
Is there any specific technology or trend that you're most kind of bullish on for the future, or something that you're really looking forward to kind of get your hands dirty with? Just curious here.
I think AI is great. I've been watching what OpenAI has been doing off late, right? I mean, it's just fantastic to see the kind of things that are, and it's just one of the companies. There are so many wonderful startups in the Silicon Valley who are investing so much in that, and not only just startups, right? Like the big guys are putting in their money. There are these big VCs and venture investment homes which are pulling in the money there. So just look at how much money there is. So AI is definitely that, and also the reach of the impact that's already there. I was reading an article recently where it's getting close to that stage where they can write good quality code. So that's just to see that as a computer science engineer, it's fantastic, right? And to be part of that. So that's what I keep telling everyone, even when I meet my friends socially. We are just living in such an exciting time in the computer science tech space that there are so many interesting problems. There's no reason to get bored. When someone says that we have a lot of time at hand or I'm bored, it's a pity, it's a shame. We have so many good problems.
That's 100% right. Probably those people aren't that passionate. Have you had a chance actually to play with the GPT model, or you've mentioned OpenAI, so I was just curious if you actually had a chance to give it a go.
No, I haven't been hands-on with it, but I follow them very closely. Like every newsletter they put out or every article, I'm deeply invested in that. But I'm aware of that model. It's just like it's unbelievable sometimes.
Yeah, have you noticed people started churning out newsletters that are completely written by the AI, and they just kind of put like a note at the end of the newsletter saying, "Hey, this is actually not written by us." Pretty cool.
Yes, definitely.
So let's go back to like our core topic here. Could you share with us, like, for somebody who has obviously been deep in the code for like so many years, what was the most kind of significant shift that you had to make, whenever transitioning to this leadership role? What was the greatest challenge you had to face? I know a lot of the people viewing here, they are extraordinary coders. But perhaps it's a bit counterintuitive for them to become, you're not actually born a great leader, you become one. So how did this process go for you, and kind of what were the moats that you had to overcome?
Yes, I would say So the greatest challenge was to have that perspective shift, right? What I mean by that is, when I was an IC, I knew, and this was true, that my highest leverage was in writing good quality code. Understanding the user stories that came to me. If I was leading that project, selecting a champion for it, just breaking it down. How do you really then design and implement an elegant solution, right? Without a lot of tech debt, without too many bugs, in a really nice, elegant fashion, can you deliver a feature timely? That's where my highest leverage was. And when I became, when I stepped into the leadership role, I kept thinking that, I was like, oh, is my team struggling? Let me just jump in and knock out a few more bugs. Let me just sit over this weekend and help them with it. I can do this because I was there with this code from day one. I wrote this library, so I should be able to help out my team. So let me just sit down and fix this. But that's not that's the greatest challenge, right? To change that perspective and to believe that I was no longer an IC and I was responsible for a group of ICs. I can do so much more than just get into the weeds and start writing code. Yeah, maybe I'll make a small difference if I close one Jira task, but then what, right? It's going to come back. Do I know my skill set as a good engineering manager to navigate around it? So I think, and the word I like to use today for that is figuring out effective delegation, right? Like, for example, for this problem, I realized that what I could do is plan better, push back better with product, understand why was the team burning out, why wasn't the team able to deliver on its goals, right? And then maybe it was about providing them that slack for this one release, and then making sure that we have enough time to innovate maybe a couple of releases down the line. What can I do as a manager to get more budget, get more resources, hire more people, manage my social capital so that I can get some relief from peer managers sometimes, or even simple things like, understanding what are the problems that are going on inside the team. There is so much that I can do, and that's where my highest leverage rests, right? In fact, one of the highest leverage activities that I feel today is coaching, developing people, because if I spend like 1 hour doing that, my the ROI on that is like 4x. The productivity is so much more better with the well supported engineers. So that was the biggest challenge, to kind of delegate better, to realize that there are people who can do this job better. Can I empower them? Can I enable them and get out of their way, and be there to support them through that process? So and that did not mean not being technically aware. Of course, I had to be technical all the time, and that's what makes engineering management so different from just people management, right? There's a lot of technicality, but it's knowing when not to get in the way of the
I
engineers.
guess that's the hardest thing, right? I mean, you're so involved with everything that just kind of holding back is kind of the best thing you can do, and that's kind of the thing you have to fight off the most, right?
Yes, definitely.
Jump on and get your hands dirty. That's incredible. Cool. Let's jump a little bit into hiring advice, right? Your experience obviously has gathered a lot of interesting stories that perhaps you can pass on. So I guess one of the main things that we wanted to know is what's a good way of getting yourself in front of great companies that you're interested in. I'm thinking here maybe social media, or what's a good way to build reputation for yourself, I guess, because what we feel is that before you kind of knock at any sort of door, you have to have like a good, strong presence that people could relate to. So perhaps you can share some thoughts on that.
Yes, definitely. So the number one thing I would like to say here is that the process starts well ahead of when the action actually happens, right? For example, building your network, build it before you need it, way before you need it. Build your social persona way before you need it. become the person that you're envisioning, do that on a daily basis, and that's when you will be able to realize your 5-year vision, right? So the work is happening, it's probably started happening way before, and the world will see the results of it one day. But you have started putting in the efforts silently in your room, and baking all those thoughts. That's what you should be doing, because it will all come together one day, and you will be surprised how it will actually serve you well, right? But the key to that process is staying authentic. Do not do anything just for the sake of it. Do not fake anything that you want to say. Do not say it just for the popularity index part of it. And I'm thinking LinkedIn, Medium, whatever is your presence, right? Maybe Twitter, wherever you are. Just make sure that you're authentic and you're comfortable with your vulnerabilities in this process. It's very important to be comfortable with with the balance of being self-accepting and ambitious, because I'm a huge proponent and advocate of ambition. Without it, how far can you really go, right, with your dreams? So ambition is really important, but meanwhile, when you're getting there, be a little self-accepting and celebrate those small wins. So this is like the philosophical part of it. The tactical part of it is, have visions. Like if you know that you have an ambition, if you want to grow your career, if 1 year from now you want to change your job, start the process today. The world does not need to know it, right? What do you do after your dinner for the next 2 hours before you go to sleep? What do you do early in the morning? How are you investing in other people's growth, right? Simple things like liking other people's growth stories on LinkedIn, being there for them when someone asks you for a connection, introduction, making them wholeheartedly and generously, genuinely being there for people. That's how you build your network. And they are there for you as an implication of that, as a side effect of that, right? It's not just very utilitarian way of looking at network. It never worked for me. If you're just looking at it from a very utilitarian aspect, it will never work for you, because they are all people. They have emotions, they have life consciousness inside them. So I would say, if you know that you want to change a job, or if you have a particular ambition or a goal you're going after, definitely clean up that LinkedIn profile, put a better profile photo, make it look as professional. It's not a personal platform, right? You're really showing off your professional genius. So make sure that it's extremely it's talking to your personality, at least, whoever you are. And then start building up on that network before you need it. And that goes for recruiter relationships all the way to hiring managers, or just like other peer people that you're interested in. So that's the real way to look at it, and your tactics will follow if the philosophy is correct.
Mm-hmm. So this is super interesting. I actually wanted to drill deeper and kind of do like a small imagination exercise. For example, there is a wealth of platforms out there to kind of contribute to or kind of leave your mark on. Either it's like with a small like on LinkedIn, or perhaps a post on Medium, or some contributions on GitHub, right? So if we were to kind of imagine, your shy introvert developer starting to build out his outside network, and perhaps he has roughly 30 minutes a day to kind of build these things, or an hour, what do you think matters most? Like what sort of actions or what sort of platforms would kind of return the highest compounded value back to them if they were to put time into them? Could you, what's your opinion on it? I'm just kind of curious to learn. What do you think are the most impactful, not silver bullets, but the things that really weigh the most?
Yes. So it really, this answer is really dependent on who is doing it, right? But let's say it's a IC who's doing it. Then I would say first start off with some one-on-one connections. And LinkedIn is it's really hard to beat LinkedIn when it comes to thinking about your professional space. It really goes a long way. So it's the first place where recruiters come, your peers are there, people above you are there, the whole professional world per se is kind of active there, right? So it's very easy to showcase yourself on LinkedIn. So I would say start with the people the people that you've worked with and you admire, right? Maybe they're more successful than you're trying to emulate their career paths. Something about them says that, oh, this guy is amazing, I want to use his case as a reference. I should probably start talking to him. And you'll be surprised how willing people are to mentor. And I can tell this from my own experience. When people reach out to me for mentorship, I really feel useful. And I think the number one reason why I mentor is because I want to share my story and influence people. And if it can make a difference in their lives, then very good, right? And my mentors tell me the same thing. So there's no dearth for people who want to help you out. You just need to make that first effort and reach out to them and ask for help. So I would say that this is what I did, and it really helped me a lot. Start with at least 3 people that you really admire, who are probably 2 levels above you and who have more experience, and they can share some tips and tricks with you, right? And ask specific question. In fact, I'll give you this one pointer. I follow the Tim Ferriss method. It's just out there. It's a very nice template where you say, hey, I admire you, this is my question, I know you're very busy, but even a 1 to 2 sentence reply will make my day. This is what I've done. There is no exaggeration in this. And all my mentors today, like I at least have like 6 to 7 beautiful mentors who have helped me carve my career path. And everything has started with this one message. It really works out because it's very respectful, and the question is very precise. It tells them that you've thought about it. So start with the messages, and then be mindful about how your activity is, right? Everything speaks about who you are. Every single like, when you celebrate someone else's success, when you don't like something, or when you whatever you do and not do is speaking about your choices. So do that consciously, and the same holds for all other platforms. So just know that this is a way of communicating, right? It's passive communicating, where through all these things you're telling your network, this is who you are, this is what you believe in, this is the things that are important to you, and that's why you're commenting on it, that's why you're liking this post, or that's why you're posting this and resharing it. So do that consciously, and don't think about the local maxima, right? Think about 2 years from now, 5 years from now, that like is going to stay there, that comment is going to stay there. Will you be okay with it? If you're going to be okay with it, go ahead and do it. So just be extremely mindful about what you're putting out there, and start it critically, and then become more open towards your networking thought processes. And it can only do you good. It never hurts.
Yeah, that's actually excellent. You've touched on something that's really interesting. It's super important for us as well, and that is mentorship, right? How do you feel like? I'm thinking a lot of people, don't have perhaps the guts to kind of reach out to the people they admire, and even if they do, they see it more like a dotted process instead of like a continuous relationship. So I'm guessing, I'm trying to figure out, and this is actually for myself, right? Where do you feel you're able to kind of give something back to the people that help you and mentor you? Or what's the balance between receiving and offering? Or is it just more like passing it on in turn, right? When you'll become in that position. And the second question would be like, what's a good way of maintaining a relationship with a mentor without being too suffocating for that person, but at the same time kind of being on their radar on a consistent basis, right?
Oh, Seb, I love your thinking, especially the second question is fantastic. Yes, so I'll tell you this, right? So for the first question, there is nothing to be scared of to reach out to people. They're still human beings, right? And most of them you've either worked with, or you've met them at conferences, or you've seen their tech talks. I reach out to people on LinkedIn who have inspired me when I watch their tech talks or conference talks, right? So, and they're all human beings. You really need to believe that they're not something that you're unfamiliar with, right? So so what you need to spend time thinking on is not how to deal with your fear, or that diffidence, or the resistance that you might have to write that first message. Just think about it this way, right? What's the worst that can happen? That person might not reply, or that person might not connect with you. So what, right? Like, there, you just keep your self-belief on, and you reach out to the next person, right? There is no dearth for inspiration. The buck doesn't stop anywhere, right? So you need to have that self-belief and that roughness to your dream, where you say, no matter what, nothing will stop me from building a good network, right? In this, so one of the goals in your dream, to realize your dream, is to build a good network, right? So how do you make that happen? So I would say, it's not true at all. That is a delusional way of looking at it, that people won't reply back, or they won't care about who you are, or maybe you're a subordinate and they don't care for your growth. That's not true. If that's a good leader, and if they have gone through similar paths, they know the value of mentorship. In fact, all the best mentors that I have today, they all tell me the same thing. They have had that in their life. They know the value of coaching and mentoring, and maybe they have learned certain things the hard way. They don't want someone else to go through the same thing, right? That's number one. People are willing to help. And the second thing is, they are actually happy when you ask them a good question, because people don't spend time critically thinking about things, asking good questions. So they're really happy when people reach out to them and ask good questions. So this is the first answer to the first question. The second question, I'll tell you something I do, right? How do you follow up and keep in touch with mentors? I literally have a Google calendar event that I've put for myself every 2 weeks, right? It says network review. It just says this, and I reach out to all I at least have like 7 people to whom I reach out for leadership advice. Some prefer calls, some prefer LinkedIn messages, and some prefer emails. I'm extremely structured about the brevity, keeping my messages brief, and the timing of the message, right? Every 2 weeks, if I have a question, I reach out to them, depending upon, who the question is relevant to, but more often than not, most of them. But that's the cadence you need. And sometimes it's 1 month. Maybe for you, it's 2 months once. You figure out the cadence, but it has to be consistent. They need to know that you are thinking about it seriously. And whenever you reach out to them the second time, tell them how the first advice worked out. For example, I had reached out to a mentor regarding better delegation, and he had given me wonderful templates and frameworks. I tried that. It really served me well. During the next call, I quickly told him in 2 minutes how effective it was, how much value he added to my life, and how my team really was benefiting from that. So I think that's the process: effective follow-up and the cadence.
That's actually incredible advice, Mallika. I think everybody should have this database of context that they constantly ping to, and then just keep a relationship going. So thanks for sharing that. That's pretty awesome advice. Let's just jump to some more general things. Perhaps you can share with us some of the books or must reads that you've really enjoyed during your career, and if you were to kind of share your not favorite book, but perhaps a few titles with the people watching us right now, what would you say is important for them to read?
Yes. So first, starting with precise advice, right? So especially for engineering management, engineering leadership positions, there are 3 favorite books. One is The Elegant Puzzle. It's by Will Larson. He mentors me, and he's a fantastic guy. He has this systems way of explaining how to think about engineering leadership, and you'll be amazed, especially if you're coming as an IC. You'll just love this book. And it's also so beautifully illustrated with all his system block diagrams. I think this is like a fantastic book, just to, especially the first 2/3 of the book is very relevant if you are, EM, senior EM. And then the last part of the book is, I feel it's more about organizational structures, and if you're a director level or VP level. But nevertheless, it's a fantastic book. Second book is The Manager's Path by Camille Fournier. It goes without saying, she just gets technical leadership so well, and all her talks on YouTube are also very interesting. So Manager's Path is like a must read. It's a Bible before you enter engineering management. And it's also a very small book, so not a hard read. And third is Radical Candor by Kim Maloney Scott. And it's so useful because we don't think about radical candor when we think about feedback. It's not natural, right? We feel like, it's all about being empathetic. It's all about being logical, but both of them don't serve right during the situations. And it's about having that balance. How can you be both radically candid, right? And then you achieve that sweet spot when you do that. And she's fantastic in explaining that quadrant. So yeah, these three books are definitely my favorites. But going one level up, I would say read Peter Drucker. Read also books like Bertrand Russell or European philosophies. Like, for example, I'm a big fan of Kafka, Dostoevsky, and Sartre, and coming down all the way to some of the Eastern philosophies. They just you first need to be a thinking human being to become a good leader. So I would encourage reading a lot. Off late, I've been reading a lot about collective intelligence and psychology and the role of behavioral psychology in leadership. So that's kind of interesting. But start with those three books. The rest of it was for inspiration, right? The first three books are practical advice.
Fantastic. What we'll do for the audience out there is that we'll link those in the recording on YouTube, so they can just click on them and get them and start reading them. So thank you very much for that, for those titles.
Yes, sure.
So presumably, the people out there have started building their social network. They have some mentors and they're building out their careers. Let's say they're facing the big day when they're actually invited to an engineering management interview, right? What do you think they should expect in terms of what are the questions they might face? What are the things they should focus on preparing beforehand? Perhaps share a bit of your experience, your recent experience with Twitter or whatever you can. That would be super awesome.
Yeah, sure. So there are a set of questions that every EM interview would ask me. And I also read this book by Vidal Gropera called as Engineering Management Interview Questions. So he doesn't really tell you how to tackle them, but he just lists all the questions, right? And there are hundreds of questions there. But what I saw from that book during my preparation and also when I was giving my interviews was there is a pattern to it, So first of all, the structure is that they want to look at your execution strategies for sure, right? What are your frameworks? What are your templates? How do you make sure that you're removing those inefficiencies by having the right systems in place? That's one round. Then there will always be a round where it's the engineering manager and tech lead interactions. How do you deal with senior engineers, staff engineers, tech leads? What are your strategies to handle high potentials and low performers? So that's one thing for sure. And the rest of the things are how do you deal with product? What's your strategy to deal with product? What kind of an EM are you? Are you more product oriented or are you more, engineering features oriented? So they want to see how you fit with that, right? So overall, the structure is like this. And then the questions, they definitely have a pattern, right? You should be able to talk about your strengths, your weaknesses. And I'm not saying that I'm proud of these questions, right? When someone asks you, what's your weakness? How do you really strategically answer that question without losing that job, right? So yeah, strengths, weaknesses, your high points. One question that everyone asked me was, how do you handle low performance? How do you handle high potentials, right? What are the problems that the unicorns face inside the company? So these kind of questions. My core principle to answer these questions is have lots and lots of stories ready ahead of time. What I did was I thought about personalities, right from Cisco all the way to my current job, different personalities, right? Oh, this person was critical. This person was a great tech lead. This person was not so performant. So thinking about people and which reminds you of stories, and then how you reacted to them is what is important. So I literally made notes of various stories, positive, negative, put them in different buckets, right? Can you talk about the story as your strength? Can you talk about this for your tech lead interaction? Can you talk about this to showcase your social capital persona? So I would say prepare for them. And some interviews are harder than the others, like Amazon's leadership interviews are very different from the others. So there are patterns there as well. But I'll be happy to share some resources, maybe some blogs and links, and then you can make it available to the audience.
That would be super awesome. Let's jump to, this year has its specifics, right? Everybody's working from home, so basically everybody's remote. What we've come to learn is that, talent is evenly distributed across the world. But, when you're in a hotbed market like Silicon Valley, it seems that, companies there are mostly interested in having people in their office. Do you feel there's been a paradigm shift this year? Is there really as companies are shifting towards remote work, do new opportunities open up for people across the world when it comes to being part of a team in Silicon Valley or in the United States? Or is it more of a facade that's probably going to wash away with time? What are your thoughts and feelings on this?
My feeling about this is that it should really open us to some positive happenings inside the tech industry, right? Because the nature of the work we do is not tied to any single geography. It just so happens that Silicon Valley has become this kind of golden place where innovation happens and there are so many companies and getting a job is so easy. But if you can break that glass ceiling and make yourself available, then I don't see any reason why it's tied to any particular location. So I really hope remote is here to stay, and it opens up, it really makes the space more egalitarian. That's my hope and that's my feeling. I think that's what will happen, because there's a lot in this process for the companies as well, right? They can do a lot of cost saving, and if they start hiring all over the world, there is a lot for the companies also, and there is a lot for people who are seeking out opportunities. So approach this with a point of hope. It's very good, because I work with a lot of people in Russia, other parts of Asia, South America, and there's a lot of talent there, and they just get the work done. Amazing engineers, amazing talent, and they don't even know how good they are sometimes. So it's really the leader's responsibility to tell them that you are a high quality engineer, right? Because it starts with that, they knowing that they are doing a good job to build their confidence. So maybe my 2 cents for people who are not in the US is this is really your time. You should be cashing in on this. You should be able to think a little bit highly of yourself, have that self-belief, have that ambition. Now the ground is leveled. Now what do you do with it? It's in your hands, right? There is LinkedIn, and it's so powerful more than ever before. It's your biggest tool. How do you use this tool is up to you. Nothing will stop you from getting a job if you're good at it. If you can crack that interview, and if you can showcase of yourself as a confident engineer, then the world's very receptive today. So I would say have that ambition and go for the great, not just the good, right? There is so much mediocrity, and the only way to beat that is if you are willing to put in the work to become great. And I see that there is a lot of talent, especially Europe, parts of Asia. It's just opening up so much. My 2 cents is self-belief and ambition, and use the tools that you have to put yourself out there. Reach out. If no one's reaching out to you, you reach out to them and put yourself out there.
And for those people who really didn't have like the courage so far, it really is a new era, right? So they're waking like a whole different world, so they can just forget everything and just focus on today and start building this new world, with confidence. That's what we feel. So I guess that's what you're saying as well, which is pretty important.
Absolutely, Seb. Yeah, thanks for clarifying that. That's very true. It's a clean slate, and probably what they have to do is what even we are doing, right? We are reaching out to everyone virtually, so that's why the ground is leveled, the field is leveled, and they are no different. So they have the same opportunity, and it's just about hitting bullseye.
I guess that's super exciting for everybody on this webinar right now. We're having so much fun and the time is flying. So I'll just quickly run through some engineering management specifics, because there are some people that have asked questions on YouTube. So I'd like to, we only have about 13 minutes left. So I'd like to run through those as well. So, just like a quick overview of, tell me your 3 top qualities you think an engineering manager should have. What do you think?
3 top qualities. I think know your people and product, right? Know every member on your team. Know your directs really, really well. And know your product, because you're still an engineering leader and you need to know the product in and out, right from the beginning all the way to what happens when someone uses an API, or how do they interface with it. You need to know it in and out. That's when you'll be able to make those decisions. Otherwise, you'll just become a middleman who is saying, oh, hey, a customer has this requirement. Let me ask my engineer what to do. You're being very ineffective that way. And people, right? You cannot deliver on greatness if you don't have the people with you. If your people are not growing, if they're not happy, and if they're frustrated under you, then there is a problem. Listen to it, right? Like, take feedback. So pay attention to both people and product. Then the second thing is curiosity. As a leader, it's very important to be curious about, why there is a certain problem in the team. Why am I not achieving high performance? Why are people leaving my team? Why are people joining and leaving within a year? Why is it that no one's, upfront about their problems? Is there enough fairness? Be curious all the time. And the third thing is, I think, empathy. That's very much necessary, especially in today's world, given everything is remote and there are so many different cultures, possibility of different cultures in your team. Can you map different languages? Can you understand people? Can you show it in action, right? Empathy is useless if you're not making it actionable. That's how you build trust, right? By taking action on what you say and what you mean. So I would say those 3 are my tops. It's very hard to pick 3 top qualities, but I would say them.
That's incredible. I think this ties into the last question on this slide, which was like, how do you build strong relationship with your team members, especially in a remote setting, right? And you've mentioned empathy. You've mentioned being able to kind of understand different cultures. Is there anything else you can do, especially in a remote setup, to build trust with somebody who you've probably never seen or you're seldomly seeing in person?
Yes. So one thing I would say, and I've learned this the hard way, I've seen this in small companies, is this, right? Like, even if it feels mushy, even if it feels like, oh, I'm doing too much of these video sessions, too many virtual happy hours, too many engagements, too many cultural engagements online with my team, It's not enough. Nothing is enough, right? So today, go out of the way, turn on your videos, engage with your team, genuinely ask them how's it going. It's a very hard time for all of us. So just really be curious about, is there something bothering the team members? Is there something that they're happy about? What are they up to? Be interested in them, be invested in your people at a genuine level. And none of these engagements that you do will ever be enough in this room, because you might feel like it's not important in the short term, but long term something will start smelling bad, and that time it will be very hard to correct it. So
Right.
catch it early and build that culture where everyone feels like they're part of the same team. See, the thing is, engineering leadership or being part of engineering team it's more like playing basketball. Like I say this all the time, it's not tennis, right? It's not chess. It's very much a team sport. So if the leader cannot play that role of the coach, where they can make them feel engaged and feel like they're heading towards a common mission, rest assured you won't be able to deliver with the same level of productivities. So it's definitely a new normal for all of us, and get creative, find out new ways. I do a lot of things with my team just to kind of keep that engagement level, and I always feel I can do better. So that's really like the brief take on that. It's very important to build that trust, and it takes time, especially when it's remote, because you're missing that personal touch, you're missing that body language. But we'll have to figure out ways to do that, right? And I think where the buck stops is at taking action. If you really see a problem, and if someone gives you feedback, and if it's actionable, then take action on it. That's the way to build trust, not by just saying things, or showing empathy in words, but in showing it through action.
Do you truly believe that authentic relationships can have the foundation in a remote setting, or does it actually, from time to time, you need to have that personal connection that you've been mentioned? Do you think you can build a strong relationship in a completely remote world?
To be honest, I hope I can do that. But a part of me, like the practical side of me, still wishes that personal touch, especially in a leadership role. It's very important to meet the person and have that opportunity to understand them through other communication methods, right? There is so much that happens when you have lunch together, or when you talk about, or just have coffee, have a one-on-one over a coffee break, or just have a water cooler conversation. I still come from a very traditional Puritan mindset, so I feel like that's still necessary for me, and I do hope that we can get back to a world where we can have a good mix of it. But I also feel like remote's here to stay, right? So I hope that we can build that authenticity and that trust as much as possible through remote, but it can be bolstered if the world allows for it. We should be bolstering it by meeting in person, maybe at least like 3 times a year, 4 times a year, meeting the team and interfacing. That's really, I know I gave a very diplomatic answer, but that's truly my belief.
Yeah, let's hope we'll be able to do that soon, right? I think everybody's yearning for some connection. Cool. Mallika, we're in kind of the last 7 minutes, and we have like 5 questions. So perhaps let's just jump to the questions from the audience. Marianne is asking, how does a management job differ when working in an early stage startup, a post-Series A startup, or a public company? So I'm guessing Marianne's trying to figure out, how does the engineering management position shift between companies of all sizes?
Yes. So my brief take on this will be this, right? It's very different. First of all, it's super different. When there are very few people, it might almost seem like, why do you even need a manager? Because it's probably a very like-minded group of people, and they know what they're building on, and everyone is in sync on what that common thing is that they're building. So that time, I think it's probably going to be more hands-on, and your role is more technical, and maybe you're also, maybe that CEO who is a visionary, who has a great charisma, is playing that role of being a leader, of binding the team, right? I have just seen that it's very hodgepodgey. It's very dynamic. You just need to play by the rule of the day. It's not very structured. you don't need processes, you don't need many frameworks, because anyways things are changing, and you probably still haven't found a product market fit. You don't have any growth, you don't have any revenue, so you're just managing the smaller aspects of the projects, right? Then series A, definitely it's getting serious. You have more people, you have at least, let's say, 50 to 100 engineers, and then it differs startup to startup, but I'm just taking an average case, right? And then now there is scope for some process, maybe a little bit of strategy is in place, little bit of framework is in place, but still, hiring is a challenge. I would think for that kind of a startup, the emphasis will be more on hiring, retaining people, motivating people to avoid that churn. And it's all about, can you change on a daily basis, on a weekly basis? Can you hear what the product is saying, map it quickly to engineering? You should be okay backtracking a little bit. You should be okay to give that sense of stability to the team and still manage the change, right? Whereas in a big company, I think it's so much more different. It's about building and maintaining high performance cultures. How do you scale the team? How do you scale the product? How do you take care of your high potentials? How do you make sure we are going towards innovation? Because you don't have problems of dealing with growth, or it's not a fast-paced growth environment, and you have the luxury of having that stability. And the management styles are very, very different. So it's, if you like, I have worked for both big and small companies. I like them both. I just feel like working in a small company hones your skill, because you are now ready to deal with chaos, right? And still make sense, and make that meaning and create that meaning for your team. So the philosophy is that be flexible with your processes. The emphasis is never on the processes. The emphasis is always on your core principles.
Excellent. I think some of the people were really interested in your LinkedIn strategy. I think that kind of opened their minds, and we have like a couple of questions around, what are good opening lines for contacting people? What sort of messages would you respond to if you were to receive a message from somebody looking for advice? Should you avoid template messages, for example, or should you just kind of create them from scratch? Any thoughts on that?
Yes. So first of all, my mantra on messaging, personal or professional, is try to personalize it as much as possible. I like to read messages which make me feel, even if it's done very cleverly, which make me feel as if they wrote that message for me, right? It's not generic, especially when you're approaching leaders for mentorship. Or I've done this even with recruiters, because I have high respect for recruiters and what they do, in today's scenario. Whoever it is, just make sure that when you visit their profile, something would have struck to you about them, right? Why do you want to not use your slow brain? Why do we need to always bring things from our fast brain, right? I'm referencing thinking fast and slow here. We are also used to bringing things from our automated brain, that we are not thinking about who that person is. What has he said? What has she said on her profile? What can I put there which can personalize this message? So personalize it. That is one big thing. Templates are okay. I'm not against templates. But again, remember that you just start with a template, then you personalize it, right? Like, there are always parts in the message that you can personalize. But templates are a great way to think about it, because they make it consistent and efficient. So, yeah.
For that. And this is the final question, our last minute. Fujiwara Sai asks, as a manager, should you be the one to ask your subordinates if they need help, or should they ask you for help?
I would say both. They should be empowered, and they should feel comfortable to come and tell me if there is a problem going on. And I always have one-on-ones, weekly one-on-ones, right? So that is always great too. Just interfacing with them and asking them if they need help, because there'll be two kinds of people who are proactive and extroverted to come and tell you that, hey, there's a problem going on. Can you help me with this? And there'll be another person who, no matter what, he won't speak up unless you go and ask them, hey, can I be of any service to you? Can I do something for you? And similarly, to follow up, I ask feedback as well. All my one-on-ones are structured that way, where I ask for feedback. Can I do anything better? What were you happy with? Is there something worrying you about my strategies? So that feedback is important too.
That's pretty incredible. Mallika, thank you so much. This has been an exciting talk. And to kind of wrap things up, David, who you've met, has one last curiosity. He knows you're a sports car aficionado, so he wants to know what's your favorite sports car.
Oh, wow. I have to say I drive a Nissan 350Z. So and it's a manual transmission, and I love my car. Every single time I drive it, oh my God, can I explain you the joy that I get out of it? So I definitely like the Datsun series. Another is I'm a big fan of Porsche. So Porsche 911 Turbo S, Carreras, they are really my favorites. And Lexus as well. If I have to pick a road car, which is a good sports car, then RC350. Oh my God, they know how to make, amazing cars. So
yeah,
I would be picking them.
Right, in the valley, driving a stick shift.
Yeah, SF is really interesting to drive a stick shift. It's always challenging.
It's the best place to drive a stick shift because of all the hills, right?
Yep.
Cool. Well, Mallika, thanks a lot for tuning in. Guys, I hope you really enjoyed this chat, and kind of practice what Mallika preached. If you're interested in finding more about her, maybe reach out with a question, have her mentor you. That's how things go. Mallika, thank you again very much for being with us today.
Thank you so much. Thank you to Telepath North. You guys are really amazing.
Yeah, thank you. Bye, guys. Talk soon.
Bye.